All right, welcome back everybody to our fourth step of the rocket building process. So real quick before we go ahead and start putting stuff together, I want to show you everything that you're going to need for this piece. So first of all, you are going to need tape. This is the primary step that is going to need that duct tape. And again, duct tape is really the kind of tape that you want to go for. Okay, you will also need your however many fins you decided to have. So in this case, we've got 3. If you went for 2, that's fine. If you went for 4, that's fine, or even 5, right? But you're going to need all your fins for this step. You will need your nose cone. Okay, we will talk a little bit about advantages and disadvantages here in a minute, but you've got 2 options. We'll go over those here soon. You'll want both of those. You will need your untouched bottle. Remember, we are not poking any holes in this. We're not cutting on this. We're basically leaving this one alone, and we're just going to tape some stuff to it. Okay, and then the last thing you will need is going to be the body of the rocket here that we cut in the last step, or 2 steps ago, excuse me. Okay, so what I'm going to do, everything, like I said, is going to get attached to this untouched bottle. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at our body piece. Okay, with this body piece, what we want to do is we actually want to trim this down a little bit. Okay, so we want to trim down the body just a little, just so that we have a little bit more room for our nose cone to come off, right? Because when our rocket launches, we need that nose cone to fall off so that our parachute comes out with it. Okay, so we want to trim this down a little bit. So the way I would do this is I'd take the body, I'm going to put it over my, my rocket, and I'm going to figure out which way fits best. Okay, so for me at this point, you want to zoom in a little bit? Try and hold this up against a white background for you here. Okay, so if you take a look, this side seems to fit a little better. If I flip this over, you'll see how it doesn't want to go all the way on there. So I want to make sure I use this side on the top of my untouched bottle, right? The bottle that's going to end up being the engine. So what I want to do, you see how we have like a little bit of a flare out. Let's see if I can get you the spot. You see how it kind of flares out up here. I'm going to cut some of this off just so it's a little bit easier for our nose cone to fall off. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to make a real quick trim. I'm just going to trim off a little piece of it all the way around. Okay, so now I've gotten rid of just a little tiny piece here, and now you can kind of see it's not quite as flared out up here on the top. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I need to attach this body to the actual rocket engine. So to do that, this is where my tape comes into play. Okay, I'm going to take my tape, and I'm going to start unrolling it, and I'm going to start taping my body to the actual rocket engine. So before I do this, I'm going to try and make sure as best I can that we have this nice and straight as possible. The straighter your rocket is, the more straight it will launch, right? We want our rockets to launch straight up. So I'm going to take my tape, I'm going to put it on there, trying to line everything up as best I possibly can. And we only need to do, let's take this tough stuff. Okay, so we are going to only do 1 wrap around the rocket. Having tried this for the first time, I would recommend taking your tape off first. There we go. Okay. All right, so I've got my tape wrapped around one time. I'm going to make my cut here. You can see why we want to use duct tape, because it's tough. Okay, so I've got my tape wrapped once all the way around my, my rocket. And of course, it's nice and straight. Now, what we're going to do next is we need to take our fins and do the same thing. So we're going to take our fins here. Remember, we created these by almost creating like a flat spot on one side of them so that we can attach them straight to our rocket. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to use to attach our fins to the rocket itself. Now, the trick here is we want to try and evenly space these fins around the rocket. So I'm just going to start by putting one on here, and then we'll do our best to go ahead and evenly space them out around the rest of the way. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape again. Okay, we don't need very much. We only need enough tape to cover each side of this fin. Okay, I know it's really hard to see. If I go down to some white background, maybe that's easier. Okay, so if you can see, I know it's hard to tell, but this little fin here on the side, that's all we want to cover with some tape. So we don't even need a full fat piece of tape, right? We can actually take some of this. I'm going to cut this off, and this one piece of tape is going to cover one whole fin. And I'll show you how. So I've got this piece of tape here. Okay, what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to cut it in half right down the middle. Okay, so we don't need this whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down the middle. Once you get it started, kind of just rip it. Perfect. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one piece of tape and I'm going to put it on one side of that fin, one little like flange type thing, I guess is what you can call it. Okay, and I'll do the same thing with the other piece of tape that I have. Just like this. Okay, and now I'm just going to pick a spot around my rocket and I'm going to place my fin right on the rocket. Okay, so when I do that, I want to make sure that this thing is attached as best as I possibly can get it. I want to, as much as possible, have it on the flat part of my rocket body. Okay, you'll see I'm not trying to put my fins up here where it's curved. Sorry, hold that sideways. Where it's curved, I'm not trying to put it down here where it's curved. I'm trying to put it where it's nice and flat right here in the middle of the bottle. Okay, so there's one fin. The other thing you want to watch out for, the folded side of the fin. You want to make sure that that is pointing upward, right? If I put my rocket down like it was going to launch, I want the folded side up. If you have an open fin here, your rocket's going to go do crazy things. So you want to make sure the folded side is faced upward. Okay, so I've got one fin on there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my other two fins, which by the magic of TV have been pre-taped for me. I'm going to take those and I'm going to evenly, as much as I can, tape those around my rocket. And so the way I'm doing this is I'm really just kind of eyeballing it this time around. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to figure out where I think about 1/3 of the way is. And I'm going to do the same thing, tape that there. Okay, the alternative, if you want to be very specific about how you do this, you would take a piece of string, wrap it around, and then you'd mark off 1/3, and then you could figure out exactly where your fins need to go. Okay, so I've got my second fin on there. Now I'm going to take my third fin, same thing, kind of eyeball it here, figure out about where 1/3 is going to be, and I will tape that one on there as well. Okay, so now you can see I've got all three fins on that rocket. They are all pretty evenly spaced out. We have our fins. Now, our last step here is going to be the nose cone itself, which is the piece that goes on the very top. What this is here for is this is here for storage of our parachute, as well as making sure that it's aerodynamic, right? We want as aerodynamic as possible to get as high as we possibly can. Okay, so you have a decision to make. You can choose whether you want this part here, which is the top of the first bottle there, that can be your nose cone, or this could be your nose cone. Now, my advice is if you're going to use this, make sure that you get an actual cap for your top, for your nose cone. Because if there's no cap, then all that air is going to go straight in there and it's going to slow your rocket down. Okay, if you don't have a cap, I definitely wouldn't use this. I would use the bottom. Okay, there are definitely advantages to both of them. This one might be a little bit more aerodynamic, but this one will help your parachute come out a little easier, a little bit more of a guarantee here. Okay, so I'm going to use this one for now because I don't have a cap for my first one. And what I'm going to do is, again, I'm trying to just take this nose cone and it's going to fit right over the top here. Okay, so I need to attach this to the body. And the way I'm going to do that, we're going to do it really simply here. Okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of tape. Okay, I don't need a lot. Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of tape here. And then I'm also going to get a piece of string. And again, we don't need a lot of string either. Okay, so I'm just going to take, I don't know, maybe a foot. Okay, maybe even a little less than a foot. I'm just going to cut that just like this. And I'm going to tape that string. I'm going to tape it to the inside so that it's as aerodynamic as possible. Okay, so I'm just going to take that piece of tape that I cut, and I'm just going to tape it. See if I can have you see it a little easier here. So I'm going to take that tape, and I'm going to tape the string right on the inside of my rocket cone, right, the nose cone of my rocket. Okay, and when you do that, you want to make sure, give it a nice crease. We want to press real tight down on that. Now, if you take a zoom in there, we can see how it kind of is taped just to the inside of the nose cone. Okay, we want to get that as tight in there as we possibly can. We don't want this coming out. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing, but this time around, I'm going to tape that string to the inside of the body of the rocket here. So I get another little piece of tape, excuse me. Don't need any more string for this part. Okay, so I got my next little piece of tape. I'm going to take that string that is attached to my nose cone already, and I'm just going to tape that to the inside of the body of the rocket. Kind of like that. And again, just like before, I'm pushing down real hard on it. We want to make sure that that tape does not come off and that string does not come off. Okay, Once you've done that, our rocket is more or less ready to go. The only step that we have left is to create the parachute, which will come up next. Thank you for watching.